So it is my absolute honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Flavia Santos. She is a neuroscientist, assistant professor, and Ed Estra Fellow at the Faculty of Psychology at the University College of Dublin in Ireland. She's a nominated research fellow at Geary Institute for Public Policy and chair-elect for Math Cognition and Learning Society. So congratulations to her. Her innovative translational research focused on neurodevelopmental disorders and ways to support mathematical performance through musical training and digital games. And she's been a super prolific scholar, publishing in math, cognition, and anxiety, and an investigator on multiple national grants in Ireland, Spain, Portugal, and Brazil. And she has translated her work into policy and practice through policy papers, courses on neurodevelopmental disorders, teacher workshops on math anxiety, game-based intervention, and keynote addresses at international conferences. She has experience conducting 54 supervisions across undergrad, master, and PhD level in 4 different countries, so lots of experience in mentoring and supporting students. And so for today's session, she has graciously offered to provide her insights and tips and advice on publications, grants, social media, mentoring, work-life balance, any other topics that we all often struggle with or have questions on. So this is a session for us to openly talk about those questions and discuss and get some ideas from her to think about how to more efficiently and effectively do our work. So let's welcome Dr. Flavia Santos, and I'll turn it to her.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for so lovely introduction, and thank you all for coming here today. So for me, it's really a pleasure to be in this entire scholarship, but especially I think today was the most awaited day because it's especially with students. So thank you. I also thank you all the staff that is also present. So when I was preparing, I'm very motivated by the artistic side of my presentation. Sometimes this one is simpler, but I always try to find a cover that represents what I'm feeling about. And first of all, because it's my frustration, there is no time to go to visit the East Wall, so it's an excuse to coming back, hopefully. But more importantly, when I was looking at this image, I was thinking about the workshop. And I was thinking, okay, we need to go through some way, we need to go some steps to reach a place, right? It's good to have the walls as a protection in case something might be damaging or detrimental. But it's also important to have these spaces in which you can really explore the views and see around. Because if you are seeing around, you are learning new things. And when you reach there, finally, you actually is arriving there with lots of new knowledge in yourself. So that's why I chose this image. And the talk today has this outline. I want to be very clear. Each one of those topics would be an entire workshop. So it's not the intention to explain one by one. It's rather to bring some questions, make you think about it. And I also will try to do it very short, like maximum 30 minutes, in a way that we save more, 15 minutes more, so we can talk and answer the questions that may not be reflected on this. So it's not a course, it's not, it's much more a conversation, okay? Let's start with publications. So one question, should we publish only in a particular field? It's not a question for you, it's just for this side. There will be questions for you, but this one is for them. Do you think we should publish only in a particular field? Like, I'm a maths educator, or I'm a music educator, and I do nothing else. Should we do it this way? Is it good? Assuming that we are going to have potentially a career as an assistant professor in the future, a professor, and no, right? I agree with you, really. I think it's not a good idea. Because if you read other material, you are learning different things, different perspectives, so it makes your mind more open and understanding better things. So I think that's a nice approach. Should we be the first author always? That's a tricky one, and start to touch the side of the conversation. So of course, when we are doing a PhD or master thesis or something like that, we should be the first author because it will give you, as professionals, future professionals, more visibility, right? But the way the career is transitioning, you're becoming more experienced, then you should consider other positions for many reasons. First, really to share, because sometimes there are more than one person contributing a lot for the paper. And nowadays, it's a trend when you see an asterisk in the names of the authors, is that they are sharing the first authorship, because there are more than one person contributing a lot for the work to be done. So I think it's nice because of that. It's a sign of courtesy, of recognition of our colleagues' efforts as well. But also, it's nice because sometimes it's not your main study. And again, if you're publishing with other people, why you need to be the first one always, right? So I think that's a good thing. So that's one new trend. Then another question, should you publish only in English? That's a tricky one. We have a Spanish speaker, Portuguese speaker, many other languages aqui, just in Asia. Should we publish only in English? What do you think? Yes, no, yes? Any doubts? Maybes? Yeah, I would say that it's very important to publish articles, scientific articles in English, in a way that, let's say, the broad community will have access to your work, right? But if you can publish sometimes in your own language or in another language, you are increasing the visibility of your work, you are increasing the potential of future collaborators, because then, like I have a paper in Spanish, and I had people from Spain and from South America that were more prone to contact me about that particular work because I was speaking their language literally. Okay, so that's something important. But I also see another benefit when you do it. Sometimes, if you publish in your own language, maybe you publish a book chapter. Doesn't need to be an article, but maybe a book chapter, and that gives visibility for your portfolio and for you as a researcher. And I recognize that you get less citations when you publish in your language. I recognize that. But you get much more invitations for talks, for other activities. So you win in a different direction. Okay? So I think that's an important aspect to consider about publications. And last but not least, always discuss authorship. Not because you're a PhD student that says, oh no, whatever my supervisor says, no, it's correct, of course, the supervisor will guide you, will advise you, but you as author, you have the same rights as another author, so you should talk to them about this. Especially because sometimes we do projects that involve 2 or 3 students, and only one will be the first author, right? So you need to be able to negotiate and say, listen, next time I would like to be the first author, or in this paper I will invest more of my time, I will do more parts on this paper, so I would like to be the first author, or any kind of discussions in this sense. Also, if you realize that you cannot contribute, be honest and say, listen, for this one, I cannot be an author. I can contribute in another one, in the next one, but not this one. So I think that's an important thing. And authorship order is a big deal, is a big issue. There are some different criteria for determining it, like you can use percentages, you can use Elsevier, even some other publishers, they do have a list of items that you can use to recognize who should be the author, or and maybe define our author's order. But usually, if you can get it decided in agreement, like in a conversation, is always better than if it's an imposition or it's just because of numbers, because you never know. Because there is this situation. Sometimes you work a lot on the submission phase. But then after that, you are so busy, you no longer have the same time. And then someone else takes over and do as best as they can. And sometimes they will do more than you did before. Or contribute in a way that, because sometimes they ask new analysis, new things, and then they are doing a lot. And so it's important to discuss authorship, okay? And don't be shy to talk about this. It's your right, it's a right to talk about this. Now, let's talk about grants. Have you ever applied for grants here? Not you, I know that you did. But have you ever applied for grants ever? No? You should. You should. Even if you are not granted, you should apply. And there are very good reasons for this. First, because you learn how to do that. And then second, because you recognize the effort of your supervisors, because it's a lot to prepare an application. Third, because it looks very good on your CV to say that you know how to apply for a grant, so you have another skill. And last but not least, what if you are successful? That's brilliant, you get some money to do something else. So during the PhD, there are lots of small grants, even grants for going to a conference or to prepare some material, for instance, Brain Awareness Week. Sometimes some associations, they allow you to apply for this. You can apply for grants for attending conferences. They give you money for, like the MCLS right now, the conference that we are going in the next few days. They are giving grants for paying for your flight, for paying for your fees. So it can be very, very useful. So keep an eye on this. When you want to go to a conference, make sure to check what are the opportunities, what are the options, because you might be losing great opportunities. And now, I think that's a time for us, because there is a huge mistake or misunderstanding with the word, the class word, is diversity. Because diverse, we all, as human beings, we all are diverse. But we know that when they say diverse, they mean weird sample, non-weird sample. Do you know what's weird? Weird is an acronym. It's not conceptual, not everybody uses this acronym, but it's an idea that each letter represents one word. So we are talking about well-educated countries, rich countries, and with a few other features, which at the end in summary we are saying North America and Europe. Okay, if you're not North American or European, you are diversity. Now you capture the idea, right? So the term is, let's say, the misuse is unfortunate, but that's a moment in which at least most societies are recognizing it and are encouraging and supporting students from other areas outside those weird samples, so from North America and Europe, to also take part and contribute to science and society, have a saying, showing data related to their countries. So that's why I think it's a time for all of us, okay? So there are several grants for diversity, so apply, why not? It's all right? It's all right. Should you apply for grants if you are not the PI or the co-PI? Yes? But why do you think so?
Because just like what you said just now, if you try to apply for grants, at least you know how to apply for grants. And secondly, I think it's always good to have more chances to explore your way.
Yes, exactly. Very, very good. Thank you. But apart from that, we can also say that if the grant is successful, it's looking very good on your CV to say that you have a successful application. And apart from that, you indeed contribute with those researchers. So even if you are not the main researcher, but you can show that you know how to work in a team. And then, obviously, that will lead to publications, to other benefits. So it's really nice, it's really useful to apply, even if you are not the PI or co-PI, if you're just what they call collaborator, which is a member of the team, but not the ones making the core decisions.
Depends on the time you have, because PhD is like just 2-3 years and you have a lot of things to do. If you do have this flexible time and you have this chance to get in touch, maybe consider, but also like, are we trying to get this technique for like learning to participate in a grant, or are you building network, or like, I think we need to know what our purpose is to, or maybe learn that from the field.
Yes, yes. Yes, I think that's very nice what you were saying. When I put that question, was actually thinking of our colleagues in the other side of the room, because definitely I think it's more common to happen for individuals who are already staff at the university, and we are more at risk to be invited or to take part in things like this. So that's why I was asking them. But I also think in your consideration it's very important to be aware of, if you have the time for this, that's very tempting, always exciting when someone invites you and say, oh, let's do it, it will be nice, but it's your time. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that. And yes, I think it's worth to do that, and especially for staff or the career staff, because when you apply for promotion, at the end they just count how many grants you've got. Doesn't matter in which field. So you are winning because you are learning a new technique, you are collaborating with different researchers, but also it will look good. It will be looking good in your CV. So that's how I would say. Now let's change a little bit of topic. Of course, I'm in part of China, and I would be fair to not say nothing about Confucius. I really like the sayings, and this one is a tricky one, I would say, right? Worry not that no one knows you. Seek to be worth knowing. It's beautiful, isn't it? But how do you know that Confucius was saying that? How do we know that? Even vaguely. Because it was written elsewhere, somewhere, right? So if you don't put your words there, there's no way for your ideas to become dominant. Okay? So we just praise this because it's written. If it wasn't written there, we wouldn't be able to do that. So this is just to cover the topic if social media is a distraction or is a tool. And I think we need to talk about both, right? And that's really a rhetorical question. We know the answer. It's yes for both, right? Yes, social media could be a big distraction if you just sit there procrastinating, no, not working. Oh, okay, just half hour more. Let's keep looking. Then it's detrimental. Then it's negative, right? But you definitely can and should use it as a tool for your work. And in the same way we get used to reply for emails, that we use to do all the tasks we regularly do. If we're preparing an abstract for a conference and you're going to this conference, why not announce that you're going to the conference, right? So that could be very helpful. And if you ask me if it can impact your career, I can give you a few examples. The Mathematical Cognition Learning Society, which is the one that actually I'm currently the chair elected, but before pandemic, they were just searching for a place, a new venue for doing the conference. And I just wrote on Twitter, why not Dublin? And the conference was invited to be to take place in Dublin. So that's how it happened. Of course, it didn't because we had the pandemic, but otherwise it would have been the case. And you should apply. It's 31st May. Okay. You change your mind later, but you apply. Okay? I'm really encouraging you both to try to bring this conference here. I think it will be really important for your university, for yourselves, and for your research. So do this. Trust me, it's a very good idea. It's a very good idea. When I wrote Why Not Dubbing, I was not expecting that one day ever I would be a shared actor. So one movement, without knowing the consequences, but one step that I gave was important to change totally the scenario of my career in that aspect. Okay, so just go for it. Okay. Another example is the Smartbus. Smartbus was a project from UK. A very honored researcher in statistics. He's a professor of statistics, and he was interested in statistics anxiety with his PhD student, which is Jenny Terry. And so Jenny just put again on Twitter, I'm thinking of translating some scales and perhaps using that in some occasion. Would you like to contribute? She just put a question there, and then boom, a list. Huge list. To summarize the story, about 100 researchers collaborated in the project across the globe. The first paper was written, read, published, as accepted for publication. It's really funny because you have a number of authors like this, and usually we do not feel excited about publications with many, many authors. But in this case, every single researcher in numerical cognition wanted to be there. It's like it will be a historical thing, you know. So just a Twitter message, very simple. And then the many numbers was pretty much similar. This is a University of California Davis. No, not California Davis, but it's the researcher is Barnes. He was searching for some collaborators for doing a replication study again in different countries, and simple like this. You just reply to the Twitter message, and then you get the contact, and then things are happening. And he got funded, and we are all contributing to this project now. So that's how we do things. So in fact, social media can impact positively your career. And just to convince you entirely, not branding, so I swear I'm not branding, but I put here this tweet about the first talk I gave here. More than 3,000 views, 86 likes, and people also sometimes they try to see further information about your project and everything. But the point is, 3,000 people were seeing the name of this university, were seeing the name of Jenny, the name of the talk. So in the future, if someone is interested in maths education using this multi-layered approach, they will remember my name. They will invite me for future talks. Okay, so that's the idea. But again, social media is not just, oh, I create a profile, which I don't go there never more, never again, which I put the worst photo I have, right? You need to work on it. It's part of your business. It's exactly here. I found very positive that we have cards, business cards, right? It's equivalent. It's a business card, so must be your best presentation. You don't need to tweet every single day, because if you tweet every day, it becomes boring and nobody pays attention because it's just another one. But if you put something there meaningful, like in this case, it was extremely meaningful. I've received lots of other messages saying, congratulations on your visiting scholar, oh, very nice, very good, have a great time, and things like this. Okay, so we need to build on it, okay? It's not just create a profile and leave it there, okay? You cannot just leave it there, you need to work on it. Okay, now we jump to another topic. And I would like to ask you about mentoring or mentorship. Do you have this here during the PhD? Yes, no? That's okay, right? No problem. Do you have mentorship for assistant professors, associate professors? Oh. Are you doing a good job? I'm sure you are. Yes, so you don't even know what's this. So this is extremely important and helpful. So imagine that you get a new job. You start working here or in any other university. I hope here will be even better for you. But imagine that you start a new job. You know nothing about the institution. You don't know the rules. You don't know the people. You don't know how to find the information. So this mentor is someone that can help you to navigate in this process smoothly. That's one thing, small thing. The most important thing that a mentor can do is really give you advice. Not psychotherapy, not psychological in that classic sense, but in the sense that, okay, you are a new professional and you have some questions about your career, how to do, what to do, when do things, or when say no, I'm not doing nothing. And so this is a hard part for professionals when they are starting. And also because we know the institution, not this one in particular, any institution tends to do that, which is to ask you to do 3,000 things every day, every year, and it's very demanding. The institution tends to be very demanding, and because it relies on human beings, people look at you, smile to you, and says, "Oh, it's just today, it's just this time, it's just this trimester. We will figure out something else later." But this later, who knows when it's coming later, right? So we need some mentorship to help us to navigate in this process, to understand what is worth to do in your first year, or what is worth to do as a planning for 2 or 3 years period, or for 5 years period. So it's very helpful in many ways. And I think even if it's not to sort any issue, having someone to talk to is really good. Academia can be very lonely sometimes, and I think you guys as students, this might be a feeling. Post-pandemic, I believe, we're still struggling because during the pandemic, everybody was at home alone, not seeing each other, not working with each other. So we are trying to go back to this in-person, but it's still much like, okay, I go to the classroom, have a talk and go home, rather than I finish the talk and then I will sit down and talk to a colleague and spend half hour with someone else. So it can be very lonely, okay? So that's very important to have a mentor. Another thing I want to say is the classic mentoring was this idea that you have someone very experienced, that could be maybe full professor and you are assistant professor or you are just a postdoc starting your career at this particular university, and that was the idea of a mentor. But actually it's not true. Any person can be a good mentor, could have your same age, could have the same level of positioning, as long as you are taking a different perspective, as long as someone that helps you to think about what you are doing and help you to do it better. So it doesn't need to be older. Of course, institutionally, we know that there are some programs which are structured, formally structured, so you might have like 10 specific sessions during a period of 1 year, so 1 meeting per year or 2 meetings in this period. And then it's different. But overall, any person can be a mentor. And also, other thing that I think is nice to say, sometimes a single meeting could be life-changing. So if you are with any need, just talk to someone, get perspective, listen to other people, and it helps a lot. And I think this is one important question. How to deal with pressure from research? I think this question was coming from students. I just copy and paste and put here. So, yeah. Everybody smiles when they hear this question. No answers, right? There's no right answer. That's the truth. But we have some clues. So first of all, is, of course, planning. Good planning helps you to deal with pressure. And good planning, I mean, you might plan, imagine that you have data collection. It's not simply say, oh, between September and November I will do data collection. It's not planning, okay? This is not planning. It's how many for instance, how many kids are you going to assess per day? What are the hours of the school you are going? Because sometimes you say, oh, okay, I can assess 4 kids in the morning, 4 kids in the afternoon, and that's great, right? But it turns out that the school has a break that is long. The kids need to have this break, need to eat during the class period. Sometimes we're not expecting, but suddenly the child will look at you and start crying. You cannot simply say, go back to your classroom, right? You need to support that kid. But might take longer than you were expecting. And then if you do not have a good planning on the number of days you need for that collection, you're in trouble. Okay? So planning is crucial in many ways. Planning for what you need to do, what you need to prepare for doing what you want to do, and also considering problems that comes from outside that are beyond your control, which will happen inevitably. Okay? Then always review your plan. So you do your planning, and after 2 days of data collection, you need to go back and see, wait a minute, is it going to work? It will be enough time? Should I change anything? Should I improve this? How can I improve this? And then breathe. And I'm not talking just about breathing as inhalation, inhale and exhale, not just this, but literally breathe. Take some time. You need to, when you are planning, it's not just, okay, I want to work 4 hours this morning. No, you need to plan your pause, to plan time to rest, to plan time, even the time you need to go on a bus, even the time you need to go to the toilet, you need to save time for yourself, so breathe. Otherwise, you will not be able to work well. And then, of course, go back to number 1 because it's a cycle, right? It is a cycle. But I assume that this is nothing new. I assume you know that, so I'm not saying, okay, reinventing the wheel. So I would like to add some other things. Usually, to avoid stress, you need to have really this planning, but you need to be a few steps ahead. And that's the tricky part, because that means that you need to see the big picture of your project and the moment you are in this project. And all the time making this communication between the current moment and the big picture. And if you are doing it, then you can really think ahead. Okay? At least 2 steps ahead is very important. It's very important. And then there is another thing that I believe is very important, especially for you guys, which is this. Delegate. We are not good at this. We think that we need to sort everything alone. We can work 14 hours a day and believe that we are doing okay. No. We need to learn how to delegate. Sometimes you have plenty of nice people with great potential, willing to help, willing to do things, with the time to do the things you need or want, and you are just struggling alone, thinking that you need to sort everything alone. And that's, every time I'm talking to someone in academia, I always hear something like that. Oh yes, I have some data on this. I didn't publish. I have data on that, but I didn't publish. Of course, because you cannot publish everything alone. You need to build a team and you need to find partners. So delegate is something important. And even I know that you must take care of your own PhD and do basically everything alone. But sometimes there are small tasks that you could actually get the collaboration of other members in the same lab. Of course, you talk to your supervisor to see how it can be done, but it can be done. It is possible. Okay, so you don't need to be like, oh, I'm dying here. No, you can talk to someone and you can find someone to help and delegate a little bit small things. Okay, another question that I found really nice from the students: what to do when you feel overwhelmed, unfocused, and have lost the focus. I think this is a very, very good one, and this vary a lot depending on the size of the problem, the moment in which the problem is appearing, let's say the seriousness of what you are doing. So it's very broad, right? It's very complex. So I try to think a little bit about your questions, and of course I'm giving mainly my own perspective in this. I know that I'm not from Asia, I don't live here, I don't know what level of pressure you are facing, so I'm just offering a few ideas, okay? So I think this is pretty much nicer. And yeah, sometimes it is like this. You are living a very intense moment, and you need to recover from those intense moments. For some of us, if we're an introvert, it might be every day, right? So yes, we need to be prepared for this. So I think the first thing to deal with this overwhelming experience is respect yourself. So if you need a break, you need a break. If this break is, let's say, oh, okay, yes, if we are talking, I'm going to the toilet for a moment, I will be back in 5 minutes. Yes, you go back, even if you're not going anywhere, you're just taking a deep breath and relaxing a little bit and preparing yourself for the next activities you are supposed to do. Okay, so respect yourself. If you need rest, you need rest. And you must give it to yourself. Okay? So one way to do that is, I try to say, indulge yourself. And this is absolutely the most diverse answer that you can get. So you can do whatever you want, the way you want, the things that work for you, that will not necessarily be good for me, for instance. So each person will figure out how to deal with this. And also depending on the size of the problem, like I was saying before. I put here a few examples of things that I do, but you can do totally something different. Okay? So for instance, now that we work in remote, at home, so sometimes if I'm like working in something that is very heavy intellectually speaking, I can rest 5 or 10 minutes in go take a nap. Or even if I don't have the time for really sleep, I can put myself on horizontal, close my eyes, stay there 5 minutes, and then I'm better after that. Well, another thing that I like a lot, if I need to keep working, so I just don't have much time, I say, okay, time for a coffee. And I could just go and grab a coffee in my kitchen, but instead I go outside, because then I see the light, I will listen to different sounds, different voices, I will be walking, which it gives oxygen, we consume more oxygen, we consume different ways, and then it helps you, at least helps me, to focus on it. When I come back, usually I know the answer for that small thing that I was stuck on. Work on something else. So sometimes I work in 2 or 3 projects. I'm not saying that you must do it. It depends on the level of your career and so on. But sometimes you work 1 hour in this, you get stuck on this, you get tired. Then you move for another project. You move on and you start working another project. That of yours could be another article, could be an essay of a student, could be anything else, right? And then again, your brain keep working while you think you are it. That's the nice thing. Sometimes I like to go to the cinema because it's exactly 2 hours that you're not looking at your screen. You're seeing a big screen, but it's something different. You can be immersed in the movie, and sometimes I live very near to a cinema, like 10 minutes walk. I can go there and watch a movie. I have no idea. I don't even read the synopsis. I just enter in the room and say, wow, someone was thinking of it. Very amazing. Yeah, amusing as well. One thing that I think works each time is spend time with your beloved ones. And by beloved could be family member, could be boy and girlfriend, could be your dog, your cat. Beloved ones, the ones that make you feel good. I think that's important. So spend friends, okay? Don't forget friends, because sometimes you are far away from your family. It doesn't mean that you don't have someone that loves you, that cares for you. So beloved friends as well. Having a hobby, I'm not good at this part. That's not my talent, but I put here in case you do. I had a student, she used to paint aquarellas. She was good painting, so it was fun for her. Another one would like to go in the adoption center for dogs, and she would be taking care of the dogs because she liked mostly to be with the small animals. Her dogs were abroad, she couldn't be with them, so for her it worked very nicely. So each one will find something that is unique, that works for you, but try to find something. Do not stay 14 hours a day working every day. You can do it sometimes, it's not the end of the world as well. But make sure to have some hours that you are doing something else. It's very important for you. Treat yourself, and by treating I'm not necessarily saying, oh, spend lots of money, okay, in the most fancy shoes that you like. No, not necessarily. Sometimes, I don't know, if you like an ice cream, could be something, you know. So, or even say, okay, this afternoon I worked a lot, so this afternoon I'll sit down 2 hours and watch TV. Doesn't need to be money-wise, okay? But find something that is nice to you. Sometimes do something unusual helps a lot. And by unusual, again, I'm not talking about something go crazy in the world. Maybe even, I don't know, if you never tried strawberry and then said, today I will eat this with strawberries. You know, kind of do something different. Sometimes it helps. And then, of course, go back. That's the key point, because that's the problem. Some people go on the procrastination thing and stay there forever, right? So no, you need to go back. So you need to control your time, okay? And by controlling the time, I mean, create your goals. Doesn't need to be, I want to write 3,000 words today. But you can say, well, I compromise and I commit with myself that I will write the abstract, which is a small goal, right? Finish the abstract, okay, now I can have some indulgence for my good feelings. And then I go back to work. And then I can maybe commit with a larger piece. Or then I can do something else. But go back. You must go back always, otherwise it doesn't work well. Then this was one of the tricky questions. If someone that's here today doesn't need to identify yourself, okay, no problem. If it was a question, a personal question, I'm available to talk if you want. You can send me an email if it was the case, okay? So a private conversation, nobody else needs to know about it. But I will give you here a few ideas of what we could do if this is your situation, or someone that you know, some other student that you know, okay? We always say, oh, I'm asking for a counseling. That's the way we do it. Okay, so I put here a few things. So first of all, do not despise this feeling or this thought. If it is disturbing you, it is important, so pay attention to this. Like I said before, respect yourself. So if you are feeling this, if you are thinking of it, respect that, do not ignore it. I would suggest take a week off. I don't know, of course, when I say that, I'm being mindful that if you're in the middle of data collection, of course, you cannot simply disappear. So you must be responsible on what you are doing. So if you have that moment that's fortunate, that's timely for doing it, okay. And then you organize yourself afterwards. But take a few days off. If you can take 1 week, great. If you can take 2 weeks, better. But I don't know, I think that's important. The idea here is really to be outside this pressure to make a decision, because sometimes we can be very emotional. The feeling is that, oh my God, I cannot do it. It's desperation. So if the feeling is taking over, you may not be seeing with clarity. So taking a few days off is really to rest your body, rest your mind, and accommodate your emotions, okay? talk to a beloved person. And I put first talk to a beloved person because you need to feel safe. Okay, so talk to someone that make you feel safe first. Doesn't need to be the only one. If you have more beloved ones, just go for it. All for all of them. Yeah? Put it outside of yourself. I think that's important. Put the feelings out and the thoughts out. If you start to talk about it, it will help you even to understand what is going on. Okay? Then I would say talk to your supervisor. And notice that if you are following this, we are saying in 1 or 2 weeks' time. Okay, I'm not saying after 2 years, now I will talk to my supervisor. That's too late. You need to talk soon, but when you are prepared to talk, because I don't want you also to go there and just start crying and crying and crying and cannot be able to say what is going on. Okay, so give you some time, but do it not too late. Okay, so talk to your supervisor. I know that sometimes they are not here. Okay, they are not here. So sometimes the problem is with the supervisor, and then that's why I put clearly here or another staff member, because then you can get another perspective. Sometimes you think that the person has a bad intention, that the person is mean with you, that the person is angry with you, that's disappointed with you, and sometimes it's nothing like that. You know, especially if you are at the very beginning of academia. I remember the first time I received a draft of one of my students, and I loved the text he wrote. And I put, I think, 1,000 of comments on the right side. Oh, here you can do this, here you can do that. Oh, maybe this is not, oh, use this reference, or do this, do that. I was very excited about the work. And the person said, oh, but you put 100 of comments, so you hate what I did. I said, no, I love it. But if you are new on academia, you see it, you feel offended. How dare you to dislike what I did? I did with all my heart. It took me hours to write this paragraph. And so talk to someone else, because then you clarify if there is a real issue. Sometimes there is a real issue. I'm not ignoring it. Sometimes there is really a problem. Could be a relationship, could be a communication problem, could be something else that I don't know. But if there is something ongoing, it needs to be also considered. Okay? And then after doing this, and then you can identify clearly what is the problem. If the problem is relationship, then it's a bit more complicated. Then you might need really someone else as a mediator, helping the communication between the two parts. I also think that, I was not planning, but I'm thinking of it right now. One thing that we do in Ireland is when we start the PhD, we do like a list of expectations, mutual expectations. So the supervisor must be explicit. I like this, I like that, I do not like to work this way, I prefer this thing or that thing. And you, student, must say what is your plan. Because sometimes there's this mismatch. So in any sort of situation, what I'm saying is talk to someone. Don't keep this inside. Okay? Don't keep this inside. You need to talk to someone. Okay? And if the problem is, let's say, related to the research, like, oh my God, I think that 4 papers is too much, or I don't know what's the mandatory here, because in Ireland the mandatory are 3 papers, and then you can do more if you want, if you have the time, if you have the energy or the opportunity. But 3 is the mandatory number of articles that you must do. So imagine that you figure out that, or even it's not your fault, simply like the classic case, we had a pandemic, right? And I had students that had data collection planned and suddenly had to do a theoretical work because there was no time for doing it. So if the problem is just research, you can reschedule. Yes, you can change the plans, even if you love the project, if it's the project of your heart, but this is not the right moment. I had one situation, one student of mine, she was planning musical therapy for patients, and was a very complex situation because she had to do the musical therapy at the hospital in small groups. She had to schedule everything. Super well planned, very nicely done. And then she comes, Flavia, I have news. I said, what is? I'll have a baby. I said, congratulations, let's talk about your next project. She said, what? Yes, there's no way you're doing it. Forget this project, you need something else. You are not doing this one. And I knew that she couldn't. And indeed, it was the case. So we changed the project. So that's something that rarely is said. Yes, you can change your project. Okay? Yes, you can change or the project, and eventually, if the situation is really, really, really dramatic, you can change supervisor. Okay? I don't know how it works institutionally here, but in the overall scenario across the globe, yes, the students are allowed to change their projects and to change the supervisor as well. And then that's perhaps the most important. Don't think it will disappear naturally, okay? It will not. So if it is a problem, you need to sort this. And whatever the decision you are doing, it will be a great decision. As long as you are brave to think about it, to make sure that you are choosing what's best for you. Okay? Another thing that I want to say is, sometimes we think, oh my God, I'm leaving my PhD and then I'm marked forever. No, you have the right to come back next year, apply again, try something else, try another department. You have the right to do it again if you need, if you want to. Okay? Yeah. So now I put all the main things. I just put here the questions that were planned for the interview that were not included. So I would just put the question and the answer. Is not something more for debating. So new realizations and approaches that helped me. So I'm very personally speaking now. So I would say definitely silence. More and more I need silence. I realize that it's important to make me recover. And another thing that I found interesting of technology, you can put using simply the word doc. You can put there the listening, the read loud, and you can listen what you are writing. It's totally different of reading yourself what you wrote, because when you are reading, it sounds like you are criticizing what you are doing, and when you're listening to the voice that the computer is putting there, it makes an interesting change. The other question, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you ever made? So for this one, I put gadgets. I really like to buy, when I need to buy a laptop, I buy one that's good. When I need to buy a mobile phone, I buy one that's good. Because there's nothing worse to be left in trouble in the middle of a conference, in the middle of a trip, especially when you start to travel a lot. So I think it's a good investment to have good machines that you can rely on. And then buy time. Buy time could be, for us academics, buying and paying for someone to do some of the tasks we're supposed to do at the university, like teaching a few hours in a few modules. That's a possibility. But sometimes you can buy time even differently, like, oh, I need to fill out this form, but I don't have the time to contract someone. Because sometimes we just live there forever without finishing, so I think that's something very useful, especially for us in the other side here. What advice do you have for graduate students or junior faculty members? So that's especially for you guys here. So I put two things. So take a breath, because the future you will be extremely busy. So take a while. Don't go with like, oh, let's do an immersion here. Let's not dive in all the activities. Go slowly, progressively. We think that we are okay because we are okay at the beginning, excited at the beginning, but it's important to go slowly. And the other thing is still the work through the academia, but also outside academia, not just being crazy of university. And I think we must see ourselves as before reading books. I think that's the main, I think. And then there was the opposite question: what would you, what advice should you ignore or should they ignore? That was the question. And my answer is very simple. When people say to you, "You won't take much of your time," don't believe them. Okay, so this is what I planned. I don't know even if we have time or not, but I don't know if you have questions or comments.
May I ask a question? Sure. Thank you so much for lovely sharing. But I have one question to seek for suggestions. As a young researcher or new researcher, do you have any suggestions to dealing with the lack of confidence in academic research? Because as a very young or new researchers, we might have a lot of concern about that. Oh, maybe a lot of people, maybe professionals have done this before, or they have more in-depth or more insight of this research. So we might have some lack of confidence. So do you have any suggestions for this to balance the
That's a lovely question, and indeed should be part of this. A very nice one, very nice one. Well, I think one thing that helps is to read. So the more you read, the more confident you are, because you really are understanding what is the field, what the other researchers have been doing, and so I think reading is very important. If you have opportunity to go to conferences, or even if you cannot go, watch webinars that are recorded and other material. I think it's very nice to listen to researchers, because then you say, like I will be very honest, when I start to work on maths anxiety, before I prepare my workshop in maths anxiety, I was very, so what if I don't know enough? And I'm proposing one workshop in this and what I'm supposed to do. I did one. I had one friend that's well-known and very famous researcher in maths anxiety, and I talked to him. He said, "Well, look at this talk. That's what I'm saying." I looked at this talk. Wow, nice. It's the same thing that I was studying, except that he has a different style, but it was pretty much the same content. So, wow, that's reassuring, very good. And then there was another colleague which is very famous. He's from Canada, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And he was invited to give a webinar in Canada. So I was very different time zone, but I stayed awake until late just to watch. And the person who was leading the workshop was posing questions. And it was very funny because he was answering and said, "I know the answer for this one. I know the answer for that one too. Oh, I know that." I said, "Yes, I know. I think I'm safe to propose a workshop in this." So I think that's the way to do that. And do not be afraid of trying, okay? And do not think that you know less, because there is something very tricky, especially when we decide a subject for a thesis. Usually, you are the person that mostly know about the topic, in comparison even to your supervisor or to other colleagues, because you are reading this every single day, and we need to read many other topics apart from the topic of our particular student. So we have so many other things in mind that maybe that specific topic you are the expert already, you know? So just trust yourself and keep going. I'm sure how I found, let's say, partners for research and how I keep those researches. Well, finding, I think, is just be brave, really. So you talk to people in a conference, or you send an email, or you make the connection. And that part is easy. To be very honest, it's quite easy. It's just sending a polite message, very objective. So you say what you want from that person, And when do you want this? Like imagine that you are going to a conference, so you want to meet in that conference, so it's very explicit. My name is this, I'm doing that, and I want to meet you at the conference. Is that possible? What time we could arrange, and so on. So that's one thing. But then once you start the connection, to keep a relationship is really the quality of what you are doing. It's really the way you are doing it. So I think you need to be, let's say, if you commit to someone that you are going to do something, you need to do what you promised that you were going to do. So it's not like, oh yes, today I want this. Oh yes, I said I would do that, but I will not. No. So you need to be serious about any proposal that you are doing. I think that's important. And be honest if you don't know or if you cannot do. It will not break your connection with that person if you say, listen, I thought I would do it this month, but it will be impossible. So you communicate what's happening and you set a new deadline and you organize yourself to make sure that you can do it. Okay? So it's not desirable, of course it's not, but life is life, and sometimes it's difficult to cope with some original deadlines that you plan. But be honest and make sure that in some point you will be able to finish what you promised that you were going to do with that person. Another thing is, I think, relationship. I said that in the interview. Sometimes people can be changing the mood according to the weather, and if you are not the same when you are communicating with other researchers, it could be very problematic. So you cannot, if you are upset, you cannot put your bad feeling on someone else. That has nothing to do with that. And other thing that is wrong as well is harassment. And I know that in your case it's not probably what is happening. You are very young, you are very excited, learning professional, in your profession. But sometimes people that are already on the market for a long while, they can be tired for other reasons and be not nice to you. And if it happens, I think that's a clear sign that the relationship is not healthy, not good. So you need to say to the person that it's not okay to do that, and that you are not willing to collaborate in those circumstances. You decide based on what happened or what happened, if it's worth to continue and to try again, let's say, give another opportunity. But if you realize that the person is really unstable, I wouldn't continue, honestly. But I think that's one important thing, to be a constant person. So you're nice in the first day, you must keep doing in a nice way until the end. I think that's important.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.